Good day to all of you. I am Father Michael Fernandes, a Salesian priest, and I am here at the invitation of Father Michael Bansore, the parish priest of Sacred Heart Church, Yerwada. He has asked me to speak to you about Catholic marriages, and that is going to be my topic. I shall take about 45 minutes for this little session, but I shall break it up into two parts, one which I shall deliver today and one at some time soon. I'm going to speak to you from the canon law perspective. I don't know whether you have seen this book of canon law. This is the book of church rules. And based on this canon law book, I'm going to present to you what the church says about Catholic marriages. So my idea or my presentation is in summary form from the many articles that are here in the book of canon law. The very first thing that we say is that marriage is a sacrament, one of the 7 sacraments. Now you'll ask me, what is a sacrament? A sacrament is not just something which is good or holy. It is a symbolic rite of the church which makes the Christ event present. So it is the presence of Jesus Christ in my life. For instance, if it is your birthday and I give to you a wristwatch, you will accept this watch as a sign of my love for you. The watch will contain my love for you, an expression of my love, but it will not contain love itself, which is there in my heart. And we Catholics believe that there is a divine presence in the simple bread when the words of consecration are said over it during Mass. That bread is not only a sign of divine presence, but it contains the divine presence itself. And because the divine is present, it becomes a sacrament. And because it is a sacrament, it calls for fidelity and for permanency. You may wonder why marriage is such a canonical preoccupation for the church. Marriage is the smallest unit of family that is built up. Is when people get together, they form a family. And a family is part of a social institution. And therefore, Paul and Jesus taught very explicitly about marriage in the New Testament. This code of canon law has about 111 canons on marriage. And besides that, they have many more which speak about the various procedures governing marriage courts, the church tribunals. In this book, there are about 1,752 canons. And from this, I told you, 111 are based specifically on marriage. Another 300 are based on the church courts or the church tribunals. So what we have is about 418 canons which speak about marriage. And so you see, when you get married in the church, you have the prenuptial inquiry. You have got to fill up the form for marriage. You have got to go and attend a marriage preparation course. You've got to choose readings for the Mass at the time of the marriage. The priest tries and makes sure that you are of free status and eligible in order to get married. The church has got this unusual preoccupation about marriage because already from the time of the Middle Ages, the church acquired juridical competence over marriage of Christians. And so, their pastors were asked to take care of these Catholics. They made rules about how marriages are to be held in order to avoid a lot of irregular marriages. If there are no rules on the road, for instance, you'll find a lot of confusion on the road. And therefore, if you don't have rules also in the church, you'll find a lot of confusion in the church. It began adjudicating various disputes over who was actually married. And eventually, it put in place a juridical process to evaluate these marriages. What the church was concerned about is, once you get married, you are married for life. And nobody should interfere in that marriage and break that marriage. That bond is something permanent, which God has created, for which Jesus was present, and therefore it needs to remain for life. In a marriage, a man and a woman, they establish a partnership of the whole of their lives by means of a matrimonial covenant. I've used two important words over here: partnership, which means both are equal, and a covenant. It's not a pact. When I speak about a pact, it would mean that we give equal amount of things. A covenant means something more can come from one side, maybe something less at one time from the other side, etc. So it is a beautiful covenant that we speak about in marriage. And this implies not merely the physical sexual union, but a total union at all levels between these two equal partners. The covenant is ordered to two purposes, namely the good of the spouses and the procreation and education of children. Now, what do you mean by the good of the spouses? Marriage is meant to uplift each other, to support each other, to make sure the other person also progresses. So I cannot put down the other person in my life. It means physical, material, social, emotional, spiritual well-being, a perfect heterosexual companionship. And the other purpose is the procreation and education of children. Though actual generation is not an essential element, but the fact is I've got to be open to every act of sexual union in case children are born from that union. There are two essential properties of marriage, and these are unity and indissolubility. This means that marriage has got a particular firmness, and no one on earth can break that bond once these people are united. And therefore the priest says at Mass, during the nuptials, once the consent is exchanged, let no man destroy this, what God has put together. What is this unity? Unity in simple words means fidelity. It just means one man, one wife. To mutually give and accept each other in marital intimacy and exclude everyone else from this privileged sphere. And indissolubility just means perpetuity. For the duration of their lives, till they are living, for the time and the progress of their children, a marriage cannot be dissolved by anyone, and they have got to remain together till they part. That's why we say, till death do us part. How does marriage come about? It comes about by the consent of the two parties. Two people who are capable, they are the ones who can give consent. I may get a mustache in my life. I may have a change of voice. I may use lipstick and I may start using high heels to walk. All that doesn't indicate that I am mature. I need to take responsibility for my spouse and for the children. And that is the kind of maturity that we are looking for, the capacity or capability we are looking for. The parties themselves give consent. Matrimonial consent is defined as an act of the will by which a man and a woman in an irrevocable covenant give and receive each other in order to make the marriage. The couple, by their free mutual consent, make a marriage covenant, and on that they build the partnership of their life. In establishing a marriage, the couple begins to live as husband and wife, and they mutually give and accept each other for the rest of their lives. who are these people who can get married? Can all Catholics enter into marriage? Anyone who is not prohibited by the law can contract a marriage. When a Catholic gets married, and Catholics, because they belong to the church, then in that case they are governed by the law of the church. Civil authority has got competence over the civil effects of marriage. So the registration of marriage, the change of names of persons, the inheritance, the property, the will, etc., all these are governed by civil law. A valid marriage, once a consent is exchanged, is said to be a ratified marriage. And once they have had the conjugal relationship, it is said to be a ratified and consummated marriage. While consummation is not a constitutive element of marriage, it does make a merely ratified marriage absolutely indissoluble. Whenever a Catholic party gets married, or if a Catholic party is marrying one of the sui juris churches, a Latin rite, a Ukrainian rite, a Syro-Maraba church person, a Syro-Malankara, a Methodist, a Baptist, a CNI, a Coptic, a Greek person, etc. In these cases, they have got to follow the procedures that we have in the church law. The marriage of non-Catholic Christians, our separated brethren groups, is governed by their own church or ecclesial communities. And if they don't have any specific law for them, then they are governed by the laws of the state. And the marriages of unbaptized persons, that is people who are non-Catholics, Hindus, Muslims, Sindhis, Sikhs, etc., they follow the law of the state. For instance, they have things like the Special Marriage Act, the Hindu Marriage Act of 1954, the Muslim Personal Law of 1937, the Indian Christian Marriage Act of 1872, etc. Pastors, the parish priests, are to see that their church communities support and assist married couples. They need to support them with proper meaning and instruction of marriage and proper parenthood, how these people are going to be responsible parents. They need to tell these couples that they have got to live a holy life and bring up their children in the faith. They have got to follow the various liturgical customs and the rubrics that are there. And that's why we say when a person gets married, it's not just the two of them, but it's three that make a marriage. The couple and God Himself who's present there in their marriage. All through their married life, they also need help because they will find difficulties in adjusting. They will find difficulties in mending their broken relationships. There will be misunderstandings, suspicions, nagging among them, and therefore pastors are called to help these people who have various difficulties in their married life. Before you get married, you need to also be confirmed if you have not been confirmed already. And a good preparation for marriage is also to attend the sacrament of reconciliation. Make a good confession before you get married, because now you're going to start another journey, another lapse of life. And for this new lapse of life, you need the grace of God. You need to purge away those faults from your side so that God now fills you with His graces. Before a marriage is celebrated, the pastor calls you for the prenuptial inquiry. And one thing he looks very carefully for is that both of you are of free status. That you're not bound by any bond to any other person, or you're not bound by any religious vows or etc. So he makes sure that you are of free status. Besides that, what he looks for is, are there any impediments to your marriage? Now, this word impediment is a very big word. And you may say, now, what is this word impediment? And Sunday after Sunday, the parish priest will read, so-and-so is getting married to so-and-so. If there are any impediments, you have the duty to bring it to the notice of the parish priest. And we don't understand this word impediment. Let's explain it very simply. If I have got to embrace you and you're sitting in the first pew over here, what is blocking me from embracing you? It is this ambo. Can this ambo be shifted? This lectern, can it be shifted? It can. So an impediment is a temporary obstacle. I cannot embrace you because this is blocking me from coming towards you. So you find that these impediments are objective circumstances. They are something that is verifiable. They are temporary blocks. If you want to go abroad, what could be an impediment to go abroad? You don't have a passport. You don't have a visa. You may not have a letter of invitation. These are all blocks. Can they be overcome? They can be overcome. You can get a passport. You can get a visa. You can get someone to sponsor you. So you see, an impediment is a block that can be overpowered, overcome. The church law lists 12 impediments for marriages. Let's look at these 12 impediments very briefly. The first one is age. According to church law, if you look at this book of canon law, you'll see that marriage is here. A boy can enter marriage at the age of 16. So some of you youngsters who are sitting here would possibly be able to enter marriage. And a girl at the age of 14. But the second paragraph of that canon 1083 says, we have got to depend on the episcopal conference of each region to fix a proper age. And our episcopal conference in India, the CBCI, they have fixed the civil law. That is 18 for the girl and 21 for the boy. So in India, we get married at the age of 18 and 21. The second impediment is impotence. That is the inability to have sexual intercourse on the part of the man or the woman. Very often we think that impotence means only on the part of the man. No, it's both. On the part of the man, there are three things we need to verify. If he has an erection, if there is penetration, and there is ejaculation. On the part of the woman, if she is able to receive the male sexual organ, in that case you say that she is not impotent. This thing of impotence can be absolute or it can be relative. Absolute means I cannot have the sexual act with anybody. Partial would be, or relative would be, that with certain people I am not able to have the sexual act. So in both cases you find that this is an impediment towards marriage. The third impediment is a prior bond. That is, a person who is married and has not got the annulment, or the other spouse has not died as yet, the person is still bonded to that spouse. And therefore, because of the prior bond, which is not yet dissolved, a person cannot enter into another marriage. The fourth is disparity of cult. This would mean one party is baptized, one is a Catholic person, and the other person is not baptized. The other person is a Hindu or Muslim or Sikh, etc. And so unless certain conditions are fulfilled, which I'll speak to you a little later when I speak to you about mixed marriages, unless those three conditions are fulfilled, we don't get permission from the church to enter into a valid church marriage. The fourth is orders. Anybody who is a deacon, a priest, and a bishop cannot get married because they are already in sacred orders. Once they get dispensed or they are dismissed from their orders, it's only then that they can get married into the church. The sixth is a vow of chastity. So while this previous number 5 covers the priests, the deacons, and the bishops, number 6, the vow of chastity, covers all other religious persons. The religious brother, the religious sister who's perpetually professed, they also cannot enter into marriage unless they have got the vows expired or else they get dispensation from their vows. Number 7 is abduction. A man who abducts a person, a woman, for the purpose of marriage cannot validly marry her unless he first sets her free for a period of time. So it happens quite often in society. A boy and a girl are in love with each other and they elope with each other. They've actually sort of abducted each other. And then they've got to let the person be free. and then you can validly enter into marriage. The eighth one is conjugicide or crime. Crime would be, now for practical purpose, let me take that I am Michael and I want to marry a person called Maria. Now Maria, there is another guy, John, who's in love with Maria. Now I know that John is in love with Maria, so I will try to get rid of John. I'll try to kill John. So I have committed the crime of conjugicide. Or else Maria doesn't really love John. She loves me. So she arranges to put an end to the life of John. That would be the impediment of conjugicide, which either I or my proposed wife could possibly get. The ninth one is consanguinity. The very word consanguinity is from the Latin words which mean consangue, with blood. It would mean blood relatives. So people who are first cousins cannot get married to each other. The 10th one is affinity. Because we have got related by blood, the people, we cannot marry persons within the family. So a man cannot marry his former wife's mother or daughter, or a woman. So in my case, take it as Maria. Maria cannot marry my father or my son. The 11th one is public propriety. Those who have lived together in an invalid marriage or in a public concubinage may not be able to undertake another bond with another blood relatives of the persons who are married together. So in simple words, it would mean a man and his lover's mother or daughter. That is, there's an impediment to a valid marriage between a man and his lover's mother or daughter. Likewise, it prohibits valid marriage between a woman and her lover's father or son. And the last impediment is adoption. Adoption means a kind of a legal bond has been set in. I have adopted somebody into my family. So the adopting parent cannot marry the adopted child, nor may the adopted child marry a brother or sister in the family. So these are the 12 impediments that we have got. So the priest, when he calls you for the prenuptial inquiry, he checks and sees whether you have any of these impediments. And when he explains that form to you, he's trying to find out some of these things so you are free and you are able to get married properly in the church. Now these impediments are rules made by the church. And because they are made by the church, they can also be dispensed by the church authorities. So it is a bishop who grants the dispensation, but the bishop normally vests his powers with the judicial vicar and the diocese, and he can grant you the dispensation for these impediments. There are some impediments which can be dispensed of purely ecclesiastical rules. For instance, the one of consanguinity, the one of affinity. These are a public propriety. This is like a kind of a caution. They are found out in society when you marry your own blood relatives. The children that are born are not very normal. They may have some kind of retardation of physical incapacities. And therefore the church as a caution tells you not to get married to these persons. There are some impediments which are of divine law. For instance, that of impotence. Marriage is meant for the good of the spouses. If one person is impotent, then he cannot build up this goodness in the other person. Or else, marriage, when there's a prior bond, if you're already married to somebody, you cannot get married to somebody else. You're cheating on this person. So these are things which come from divine law. The bishop can, in many cases, free you from these impediments, but there are 3 cases where the bishop cannot free you. And these are reserved cases which are reserved only to the Holy See or the Holy Father. This is if one is in holy orders, if one has got the public vow of chastity, and if one commits the impediment of crime or conjugicide. But if you remember in the year 2015 or 16, when we had the Holy Year of Mercy, Pope Francis called priests to Rome and he instructed them and he shared certain powers of him and he said, some sins which only the Pope can forgive, I am allowing these priests now to go and forgive. And these were those type of reserved sins for which the Pope gave authority to also those mysteries of mercy to forgive those sins. Another aspect I want to talk to you about is about consent. Consent is what makes marriage. So many people say if consent makes marriage, then what is the purpose of the ring in marriage? The ring is a sign of marriage, that I am married, that I am bonded to somebody else. I've got to be faithful to that somebody else. It's a sign of the love which that person has for me, and that's what I show out to other persons. Matrimonial consent is an act of the will by which people, a man and a woman, mutually give and accept each other to establish a marriage. The couple has got to be present in person or else in proxy. And the internal consent of their minds should be in accordance with what they are going to express externally. In the canon law, we have 8 possible defects of consent, of matrimonial consent. The first is incapacity. Incapacity would mean those who lack sufficient use of reason. You find persons who may be 18 years or 21 years of age, but they're still very playful, very childish, not able to make decisions, unable to take responsibility in life, not serious about marriage, and will not be able to look after their spouse and bring up their children. That means these people lack sufficient use of reason. Those who lack due discretion of judgment about the rights and duties of marriage. You'll find some people who gamble, some people who are alcoholics, some people who remain unfaithful to their spouses, some people who physically and verbally abuse each other. Man and woman are in an equal partnership. So one cannot dominate and have all these kind of things in life. It means this person is not making a proper judgment about their marriage. Another one would be unable to assume the obligations of marriage for psychological reasons. So in this case, it would be somebody is mentally deranged, somebody is mentally retarded, somebody who is a schizophrenia. For psychological reasons, this person is not able to express that consent in marriage. So though we say this is one ground of the defect of consent, you find that there are 3 different grounds over here. Lack of sufficient use of reason, lack of due discretion of judgment, and because of psychological reasons. The second is ignorance. People should be aware of at least 2 things. That marriage is a permanent relationship, and secondly, that there should be some kind of sexual cooperation in order to give to each other when a valid consent is given. So these 2 things, namely about some form of sexual cooperation in marriage and that marriage is a permanent partnership, should be clear. Ignorance about this would be a defect of consent. Error about the person. This would mean mistaken identity about one's partner, a real substitution of the partner. So if I go to somebody's house to see a proposal and there are twins over there, and one girl's name is Eliza and other one's name is Elizabeth, and I look at each other, I say, I'll marry that one. I'll take Elizabeth. But on the actual day, Eliza is presented to me. I cannot really make out the difference, just a slight tone of voice. But then I realized, no, I got the wrong girl. So here you find there's a real substitution of that person. It could be also substitution of some quality of the partner. If I am going to get married and I say I'm a big chef in a restaurant, I like cooking very much, and then I boast and tell my to-be spouse, look, I am a chef in a big restaurant in Dubai. And my spouse also tells me the very same thing. I also am a good chef. I cook a number of things. She counts the number of dishes. She gives good names for all these things, fine. But then when she comes to Dubai, she finds I am not a chef. I'm only a waiter in the restaurant. I have here some quality I have defrauded. And therefore this marriage could also be annulled because of the defect of consent. The quality intended was missing. If I am a chef, I wanted a chef. If she is a chef, she wanted a chef. The fourth would be fraud. That is, I deceived somebody else in order to get the consent of that person. So for instance, if my to-be spouse has got a mental illness, if there's a criminal record of this person, if the person is suffering from AIDS, if there's some genetic abnormality, the pregnancy by somebody else, she's already pregnant by somebody else, she doesn't reveal all these things, in that case she is cheating, and therefore there is fraud in this marriage. The fifth is error about marriage. Now this error concerns three things. Error about the unity of marriage. I am not sure that marriage is forever. It's only meant to be one person. When I get fed up of this person, I'm going to leave this person. I'm mistaken. I've got an erroneous concept about marriage. Indissolubility. I know that marriage is there. My friends live with one person. They change partners. They have a live-in relationship. I don't believe that marriage is indissoluble. So my friends are that way. No. But in the church, marriage is indissoluble. Once I have a ratified marriage, and especially once it is consummated, that marriage is indissoluble. And there is a sacramental dignity of marriage. So when I speak about the error of marriage, I should not be mistaken about the unity, indissolubility, or the sacramental dignity of marriage. The sixth is simulation. A simulation would mean that I am now making my vows, I am consenting to marry Maria. But in reality, I like Elizabeth. And so while I am saying Maria, 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 in my mind is going to Elizabeth, Elizabeth, Elizabeth. So I have simulated consent. I have not willed Maria for my life. I have wanted Elizabeth in my life. That would be the simulation of consent. There's also partial simulation. That is, I have the intention against children. Marriage is for the good of the spouses, education and procreation. And so I say, I do not want to have children in my life. I say, okay, all the other things of marriage are okay. And I do not want children. I have simulated my consent. If I have the intention against fidelity, I am married to Maria, but I say I can carry on my relationship with somebody else in the office or at work, etc. Then I am remaining unfaithful. I have simulated my consent. If I have the intention against perpetuity, I am not going to stay with Maria all my life. As long as it works, I will stay with her. If it doesn't work, I am going to dump Maria. So then in that case, what happens is I don't believe in the permanency of marriage. So these three things would be partial simulation, intention against children, intention against fidelity, and the intention against perpetuity. The seventh is condition. I can't put a future condition to my spouse about marriage. I will get married to you provided we stay abroad. I will get married to you provided we own a ranch. I'll get married to you provided we own a houseboat somewhere. These conditions don't make marriage come through. Force of fear is the eighth thing about consent. If someone compels me to get married by force of fear, in that case, that marriage is invalid. Force is a physical force. I take you, force you say, come, you have got to marry this boy. And you have got to say yes. Fear comes from within the person. I'm afraid to marry the person, but what to do? I'm in a situation now. Maybe I've become pregnant and so I've got to get married. I went for an office picnic. There I had an affair with somebody. I'm afraid maybe I am pregnant. Or I had a kind of a relationship and we went out for an overnight stay. And the boy took pictures of what was happening over there. He's going to blackmail me. I'm afraid of those pictures coming out. And so I say, okay, I'll get married to you. That is marriage by fear. So what I've spoken to you now is about marriage, the Catholic concept about marriage. I've spoken to you about the impediments of marriage, the 12 impediments of marriage. I've spoken to you about consent, how consent brings about marriage, and the various defects, the 8 defects of consent of marriage. I'll speak to you very soon, and I hope you have listened carefully to what I have said. And the next part which I'll speak to you about will be about the form of marriage and about the separation and the procedure that happens in the church tribunal. Have a good day.